Conservatism as a political and social philosophy promotes retaining traditional social institutions in the context of culture and civilization. Some conservatives seek to preserve things as they are, emphasizing stability and continuity, while others, called reactionaries, oppose modernism and seek a return to the way things were. The first established use of the term in a political context originated with François-René de Chateaubriand in 1818. During the period of Bourbon restoration that sought to roll back the policies of the French Revolution, the term, historically associated with right-wing politics, has since been used to describe a wide range of views. There is no single set of policies that are universally regarded as conservative, because the meaning of conservatism depends on what is considered traditional in a given place and time. Thus, conservatives from different parts of the world, each upholding the respective traditions, may disagree on a wide range of issues. Edmund Burke, an 18th-century politician who opposed the French Revolution but supported the American Revolution, is credited as one of the main theorists of conservatism in Britain in the 1790s. According to Quintin Hogg, the chairman of the British Conservative Party in 1959, conservatism is not so much a philosophy as an attitude, a constant force performing a timeless function in the development of a free society, and corresponding to a deep and permanent requirement of human nature itself. Development of Western conservatism. Great Britain. In Britain, conservative ideas emerged in the Tory movement during the Restoration period. Toryism supported a hierarchical society with a monarch who ruled by divine right. Tories opposed the idea that sovereignty derived from the people, and rejected the authority of Parliament and freedom of religion. Robert Filmer's Patriarcha, or The Natural Power of Kings, published posthumously in 1680 but written before the English Civil War of 1642 to 1651, became accepted as the statement of their doctrine. However, the Glorious Revolution of 1688 destroyed this principle to some degree by establishing a constitutional government in England, leading to the hegemony of the Tory-opposed Whig ideology. Faced with defeat, the Tories reformed the movement, now holding that sovereignty was vested in the three estates of Crown, Lords, and Commons rather than solely in the Crown. Toryism became marginalized during the long period of Whig ascendancy in the 18th century. Conservatives typically see Richard Hooker as the founding father of conservatism, along with the Marquess of Halifax, David Hume and Edmund Burke. Halifax promoted pragmatism in government, whilst Hume argued against political rationalism and utopianism. Burke served as the private secretary to the Marquess of Rockingham and his official pamphleteer to the Rockingham branch of the Whig Party. Together with the Tories, they were the Conservatives in the late 18th century United Kingdom. Burke's views were a mixture of liberal and conservative. He supported the American Revolution of 1765 to 1783 but abhorred the violence of the French Revolution. He accepted the liberal ideals of private property and the economics of Adam Smith, but thought that economics should remain subordinate to the conservative social ethic, that capitalism should be subordinate to the medieval social tradition, and that the business class should be subordinate to aristocracy. He insisted on standards of honor derived from the medieval aristocratic tradition, and saw the aristocracy as the nation's natural leaders, that meant limits on the powers of the crown, since he found the institutions of Parliament to be better informed than commissions appointed by the executive. He favored an established church but allowed for a degree of religious toleration. Burke justified the social order on the basis of tradition. Tradition represented the wisdom of the species, and he valued community and social harmony over social reforms. Burke was a leading theorist in his day, finding extreme idealism an endangerment to broader liberties, and rejecting abstract reason as an unsound guide for political theory. Despite their influence on future conservative thought, none of these early contributors were explicitly involved in Tory politics. Hooker lived in the 16th century, long before the advent of Toryism, whilst Hume was an apolitical philosopher and Halifax similarly politically independent. Burke described himself as a Whig revival. Shortly after Burke's death in 1797, conservatism revived as a mainstream political force as the Whigs suffered a series of internal divisions. This new generation of conservatives derived the politics not from Burke but from his predecessor, the Viscount Bolingbroke, who was a Jacobite and traditional Tory, lacking Burke's sympathies for Whiggish policies such as Catholic emancipation and American independence. In the first half of the 19th century, many newspapers, magazines, and journals promoted loyalist to right-wing attitudes in religion, politics, and international affairs. Burke was seldom mentioned, but William Pitt the Younger became a conspicuous hero. The most prominent journals included the Quarterly Review, founded in 1809 as a counterweight to the Whig's Edinburgh Review, and the even more conservative Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine. Sack finds that the Quarterly Review promoted a balanced Canningite Toryism, was neutral on Catholic emancipation and only mildly critical of nonconformist dissent. It opposed slavery and supported the current poor laws. It was aggressively imperialist. The High Church clergy of the Church of England read the Orthodox Churchman's magazine, which was equally hostile to Jewish, Catholic, Jacobin, Methodist, and Unitarian spokesmen. Anchoring the ultra-Tories, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine stood firmly against Catholic emancipation and favoured slavery, cheap money, mercantilism, the Navigation Acts, and the Holy Alliance. Conservatism evolved after 1820, embracing free trade in 1846, and a commitment to democracy, especially under Disraeli. The effect was to significantly strengthen conservatism as a grassroots political force. Conservatism no longer was the philosophical defense of the landed aristocracy, but had been refreshed into redefining its commitment to the ideals of order, both secular and religious, expanding imperialism, strengthened monarchy, and a more generous vision of the welfare state as opposed to the punitive vision of the Whigs and Liberals. As early as 1835, Disraeli attacked the Whigs and utilitarians as slavishly devoted to an industrial oligarchy, while he described his fellow Tories as the only really democratic party of England and devoted to the interests of the whole people. Nevertheless, inside the party there was a tension between the growing numbers of wealthy businessmen on the one side, and the aristocracy and rural gentry on the other. The aristocracy gained strength as businessmen discovered they could use the wealth to buy a peerage on a country estate. Although conservatives opposed attempts to allow greater representation of the middle class in Parliament, in 1834 they conceded that electoral reform could not be reversed and promised to support further reforms so long as they did not erode the institutions of church and state. These new principles were presented in the Tamworth Manifesto of 1834, which historians regard as the basic statement of the beliefs of the new Conservative Party. Some conservatives lamented the passing of a pastoral world where the ethos of noblesse oblige had promoted respect from the lower classes. They saw the Anglican Church and the aristocracy as balances against commercial wealth. They worked toward legislation for improved working conditions and urban housing. This viewpoint would later be called Tory democracy. However, since Burke there has always been tension between traditional aristocratic conservatism and the wealthy business class. In 1834, Tory Prime Minister Robert Peel issued the Tamworth Manifesto, in which he pledged to endorse moderate political reform. This marked the beginning of the transformation of British conservatism from high Tory reactionism towards a more modern form based on conservation. The party became known as the Conservative Party as a result, a name it has retained to this day. Peel, however, would also be the root of a split in the party between the traditional Tories and the Peelites. The split occurred in 1846 over the issue of free trade, which Peel supported, versus protectionism, supported by Derby. The majority of the party sided with Derby, whilst about a third split away, eventually merging with the Whigs and the Radicals to form the Liberal Party. Despite the split, the mainstream Conservative Party accepted the doctrine of free trade in 1852. In the second half of the 19th century, the Liberal Party faced political schisms, especially over Irish Home Rule. Leader William Gladstone sought to give Ireland a degree of autonomy, a move that elements in both the left and right wings of his party opposed. These split off to become the Liberal Unionists, forming a coalition with the Conservatives before merging with them in 1912. The Liberal Unionist influence dragged the Conservative Party towards the left, Conservative governments passing a number of progressive reforms at the turn of the 20th century. By the late 19th century, the traditional business supporters of the UK Liberal Party had joined the Conservatives, making them the party of business and commerce. After a period of liberal dominance before the First World War, the Conservatives gradually became more influential in government, regaining full control of the cabinet in 1922. In the interwar period, conservatism was the major ideology in Britain, as the Liberal Party vied with the Labour Party for control of the left. After the Second World War, the first Labour government under Clement Attlee embarked on a programme of nationalisation of industry and the promotion of social welfare. The Conservatives generally accepted those policies until the 1980s. In the 1980s, the Conservative government of Margaret Thatcher, guided by neoliberal economics, reversed many of Labour's programmes. Small conservative political parties, such as the United Kingdom Independence Party and the Democratic Unionist Party, began to appear, although they have yet to make any significant impact at Westminster. Germany. Conservative thought developed alongside nationalism in Germany, culminating in Germany's victory over France in the Franco-Prussian War, the creation of the unified German Empire in 1871, and the simultaneous rise of Otto von Bismarck on the European political stage. Bismarck's balance of power model maintained peace in Europe for decades. At the end of the 19th century, his revolutionary conservatism was a conservative state-building strategy designed to make ordinary Germans, not just the younger elite, more loyal to state and emperor. He created the modern welfare state in Germany in the 1880s. According to Kees van Kersbergen and Barbara Vis, his strategy was granting social rights to enhance the integration of a hierarchical society, to forge a bond between workers and the state so as to strengthen the latter, to maintain traditional relations of authority between social and status groups, and to provide a countervailing power against the modernist forces of liberalism and socialism. Bismarck also enacted universal male suffrage in the new German Empire in 1871. He became a great hero to German conservatives, who erected many monuments to his memory after he left office in 1890. With the rise of Nazism in 1933, agrarian movements faded and was supplanted by a more command-based economy and forced social integration. Though Adolf Hitler succeeded in garnering the support of many German industrialists, prominent traditionalists openly and secretly opposed his policies of euthanasia, genocide, and attacks on organized religion, including Klaus von Stauffenberg, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Henning von Treschow, Bishop Clemens August Graf von Galen, and the monarchist Karl Friedrich Goerdeler. More recently, the work of conservative CDU leader Helmut Kohl helped bring about German reunification, along with the closer integration of Europe in the form of the Maastricht Treaty. Today, German conservatism is often associated with Chancellor Angela Merkel, whose tenure has been marked by attempts to save the common European currency from demise. United States. In the United States, conservatism is rooted in the American Revolution and its commitment to republicanism, sovereignty of the people, and the rights and liberties of Englishmen while expelling the king and his supporters. Most European conservative writers do not accept American conservatism as genuine. They consider it to be a variety of classical liberalism. Modern American social liberals in the New Deal do not disagree with the consensus view, but conservatives spend much more emphasis on the revolutionary origins, with the Tea Party advocates using an episode from the 1770s for their name, and some even dress in costumes from that era at the rallies. Historian Gregory Schneider identifies several constants in American conservatism: respect for tradition, support of republicanism, the rule of law and the Christian religion, and a defense of Western civilization from the challenges of modernist culture and totalitarian governments. France. Another form of conservatism developed in France in parallel to conservatism in Britain. It was influenced by counter-Enlightenment works by men such as Joseph de Maistre and Louis de Bonnel. Latin conservatism was less pragmatic and more reactionary than the conservatism of Burke. Many continental or traditionalist conservatives do not support separation of church and state, with most supporting state recognition of and cooperation with the Catholic Church, such as had existed in France before the Revolution. Eventually, conservatives added patriotism and nationalism to the list of traditional values they support. German conservatives were the first to embrace nationalism, which was previously associated with liberalism and the Revolution in France.